So the way I see it is that Bitcoin has two fundamental utilities, we might call them payments and savings. So payments, transactional, moving money around, savings, holding money. And that there's been a lot of cultural tension between these of is Bitcoin just digital gold, or like is it going to fulfill its full promise of electronic cash that you use day to day? And as I've thought about it during my decade in Bitcoin, I've always been all of the above, and with depending on what actually is getting traction. And I think that like I worked as a product manager at Kraken, and so I read a lot of product books. So now I have like a product mindset of like what are users actually interested in, and not fighting users, but building tools for them to make their lives easier and solve real problems. And so when we look at, for example, Bitcoin custody, there's a lot of people that are really nervous about holding their own keys. They don't want that responsibility. When we look at the Bitcoin price volatility, there's a lot of people who they like Bitcoin conceptually. They think it's good for the world, but it's just too volatile for them. They can't stomach the price risk. And then you have on the other end, you have people who they like Bitcoin, but they actually want more risk. And historically, they go for like altcoins and all these other things where they want to like get rich quick, let's say, and to take more risk to try to outperform Bitcoin. So the way I see securitization and financial institutions adopting Bitcoin and governments adopting Bitcoin is solving a real problem, which is that there are people who need intermediaries between them and Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is like this monetary backbone system, and it's almost like asking somebody to like directly connect to a high voltage electrical line with their iPhone USB plug. It's like, no, you need some transformers in between this high energy system and kind of the consumer app. I think it's super challenging for Bitcoiners because we like risk, first of all. Like, we're all younger, like, volatility, like, who cares? And so we can't relate to that. We lack empathy for those folks. Also, we're tech savvy. And so for us, like, private keys, it's like, yeah, that's just like, that's data. And you can, put that into a mnemonic phrase. And, for us, it's tangible in the same way that a bar of gold is. But for anybody else, it's like, it's magic. It's and magic internet money, right? And so they can't grok it, and that's why I think that like there's been one of the challenges of going mainstream has been building products that actually appeal to the mainstream.
You touched on the volatility aspect a little bit, but yes, Bitcoin's definitely volatile. How do you think that we can get people using Bitcoin more as a currency despite the volatility?
So I think that ultimately it comes down to double coincidence of wants. So one person has Bitcoin on their balance sheet already. They already hold it. They already have a wallet. The other person already has Bitcoin, already has a wallet. And at that point, they can send Bitcoin back and forth between each other. But if one end of that is missing, then they're going to have to convert into their local currency, and they're going to have a conversion cost. And then it's like, okay, why didn't we just use the local currency, which is what we've always been using? And so I almost see the flourishing of payments is going to be perhaps the last step in Bitcoin adoption. And the way we get there is by gradually having more and more people, holding Bitcoin, and that when that reaches, let's say 100% adoption, Bitcoin won't have any volatility anymore because, everybody's already got it. So there's not like these animal spirits of people all trying to buy it at the same time and all panic selling it at the same time.
What are you currently most excited about in Bitcoin?
Currently most excited about, I think that as I mentioned, the securitization aspect of it, getting into capital markets, but also, I think that for me, what's really interesting is the Bitcoin education part that comes with that, because there's lots of people who have only gotten their Bitcoin education from, say, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. And that has actually been a very biased perspective on Bitcoin, where they haven't really heard the full story of Bitcoin. And so when for example, I got to testify in front of the Texas Senate, I was able to present a case for Bitcoin that is something that those senators have never heard about before. And so I think that even if they don't pass the law or whatever, they have learned about Bitcoin such that when they go back to their communities, where they're obviously very influential since they got elected, they're able to share a different perspective on Bitcoin than what you would see in the mainstream media. So I see the institutional adoption as like a great educational Trojan horse of sorts to get more of the Bitcoin ethos out there. And it's something that we don't have to necessarily like compromise on. I think that's like something people worry about is like, do we have to dilute the message in order to appeal to these folks? And it turns out not. It's funny because when the hearing opened, it was with the chairman of the committee. And so, he's a state senator, and he starts talking about how the dollar is eventually going to go to zero, so we need an alternative. And this is stuff that, when we were saying it 10 years ago, was like, okay, you're a paranoid libertarian, like you need to put your tinfoil hat on. But here it's like the state senator saying it, and he's not saying it of like, oh, Bitcoin's just digital gold, it's not a currency. No, he was putting it front and center that this is an alternative currency that is decentralized, that is like a backup system for when the primary currency fails. And I think that was just astonishing to hear from a public official.